1897 Brussels, Belgium. Sunlight shines upon a rising city. Crowds line the streets, cheering the name of a king. Leopold II, King of the Belgians. A man who dreamed of transforming his nation. He wanted his capital to rank among Europe's greatest cities. He built museums, palaces, monumental structures, and even a massive triumphal arch. Years later, when people stand before these buildings, they will marvel, these are relics left from a great age. Yet if you stand on another land, thousands of kilometers away from Brussels, you will witness a scene utterly different. There are no marble edifices, no music, no cheers. Only forest, damp air, and people waiting for death. No one remembers my name. In those times, we had no names, only numbers. Each dawn, long before sunrise, footsteps echo outside the village. They are not the footsteps of hunters nor neighbors. They belong to soldiers. Clad in European uniforms, armed with guns, leather whips hanging from their waists. They come bearing no trade, but an order: you must deliver a set amount of rubber today. If you fail, they will take your wife, your children, your parents. The land beneath our feet no longer belongs to us. It belongs to a king who has never laid eyes on us, Leopold II. Decades earlier, when Leopold was still the Belgian crown prince, he clung to one conviction. For a small nation to grow powerful, it must possess colonies. Belgium was young. Unlike France, it lacked a vast overseas empire, colonies scattered across the globe. To Leopold, this was a disgrace. He studied the colonial models of other European powers. He observed how the Dutch ruled Java, how Britain controlled India. One pattern stood clear: land and colonies equal power. So he set out to seek territory of his own. The Philippines failure, coastal China failure, other overseas territories failure. Until he turned his gaze to the heart of Africa, the Congo. In 1876, he convened the Brussels Geographic Conference. On the surface, it was an international summit to explore Africa and advance civilization. He told Europe, we ought to help the African people. We must put an end to the slave trade. We shall spread civilization. This narrative sounded convincing. Many Europeans of that era truly believed they were saving Africa. But behind those ornate words lay Leopold's true ambition: control. He founded an organization called the International African Association, claimed to be a charity. In truth, it was his first foothold into the Congo. Then he found the pivotal figure he needed, Henry Morton Stanley, the man famous for finding Dr. Livingstone. To the Congolese, Stanley became the one who unlocked the gates of disaster. Stanley ventured deep into the Congo interior. He traveled from village to village and negotiated with local chiefs. Sign this agreement, he told them. We will bring trade, we will offer protection. The chiefs had no way of knowing that the documents they signed were not treaties of friendship. Written under European law, the papers meant they surrendered their land, their resources, and submitted to the rule of a distant king, a man they had never met, whose name they barely knew. A few years later, European powers gathered for the Berlin Conference, held between 1884 and 1885. European states sat around the table to discuss the partition of Africa. The debate was not whether Africa should be occupied, but how much territory each power could seize. Leopold presented stacks of these so-called treaties. In the end, the European powers recognized that the Congo Free State belonged to Leopold II. Crucially, it did not belong to Belgium, it belonged to him personally. The world now bore witness to an extraordinary entity, a territory dozens of times larger than Belgium, the private property of one king. Its forests, rivers, minerals, and people were all his. And there was only one thing he intended to do: make money. 1888, the Congo Free State, deep within the forests. An expedition marches onward. They seek neither gold, nor cities, nor new civilizations. They hunt for one tree, the rubber tree. By the end of the 19th century, the world was undergoing tremendous change. Automobiles emerged, industrial machinery proliferated. Wires, cables, tires all demanded rubber. Rubber prices soared. For Leopold II, this was an opportunity to rewrite his fortunes. Once merely a vast unknown wilderness, the Congo had turned into a mine waiting to be exploited. My father once told me, the forest belongs to us, the river belongs to us, the land belongs to our ancestors. Everything changed after that year. White soldiers arrived in the villages, holding documents. They spoke to the village chiefs.
This is the king's order. You must deliver rubber every single day.
At first, we did not understand what rubber meant. We only saw the soldiers return more and more often, raising our quotas higher and higher. No one could possibly meet them. Rubber was not wealth ready to be plucked from trees. We had to venture into dangerous woods to find wild rubber trees, slash their bark, wait for sap to flow, and carry it back. Sometimes we would leave the village for weeks on end. Even then, we could never gather enough. Quotas were not set based on what the forest could provide, they were dictated by the European market. Failure to meet the target brought punishment. Soldiers seized women and children. They told the men,
"Bring enough rubber, and your family will be released."
whole villages turned into prisons. Men forced into the forest, women held hostage, children weeping, the elderly waiting helplessly. Everyone knew death awaited those who failed. To enforce these orders, Leopold established a special force, the Force Publique, ostensibly tasked with maintaining order across the Congo Free State. It was in reality the instrument of the Rubber Empire. European officers commanded the troops, yet most rank-and-file soldiers were Congolese. Many were conscripted against their will, drilled and forced to carry out brutal commands. They too lived in constant fear. Failure to fulfill missions meant punishment for them as well. Thus a system built on terror took shape. Those at the top craved profit, officers strove to hit quotas, soldiers feared retribution, villagers feared death. Every soul was trapped inside this merciless machine. And this machine needed proof of every life it claimed. Bullets were precious back then. European colonizers feared armed uprisings if colonial troops possessed abundant weaponry. Shipping ammunition from Europe to Africa also came at great cost. Therefore, the colonial authorities imposed a rule. Every bullet fired by a soldier required proof that it had struck an enemy. That proof was a right hand. Initially, this was meant to tally combat casualties. It swiftly descended into catastrophe. Soldiers needed severed hands to account for their ammunition. Human hands became a form of evidence. Some soldiers killed innocent villagers just to obtain hands and conserve bullets. Others even scavenged corpses to meet their quota. More and more people wandered the forests without their hands. This era left behind one of humanity's most haunting photographs. A man sits on the ground, staring at his daughter. The little girl has lost both hands, and the father can do nothing to save her. In 1890, George Washington Williams traveled to the Congo. A black pastor, he was one of America's earliest advocates addressing colonial atrocities in Africa. At first, he believed Leopold's propaganda. He hoped the Congo Free State might truly bring progress. But when he journeyed deep into the region, what he discovered horrified him. Villages destroyed, communities living in perpetual dread, forced labor spread across the land. He penned an open letter to Leopold II, accusing him of systematic oppression against the Congolese people. This was one of the first major public denunciations of the atrocities in the Congo. Leopold refused to acknowledge the crimes. He did not claim ignorance. Instead, he chose to control the narrative. He hired journalists, arranged curated sightseeing tours, and showed the world carefully selected, peaceful villages. He proclaimed, "The Congo is advancing, a new age had arrived." Violence relied not only on guns, but propaganda. In 1899, a novel was published, Heart of Darkness, written by Joseph Conrad. Conrad had traveled to the Congo himself, working as a steamboat captain. What he witnessed there formed the core of this book. The novel portrays the colonial system built by Europeans in Africa as a darkness that devours human nature. Meanwhile, the horrors unfolding in the real Congo could no longer be concealed. In 1904, British diplomat Roger Casement submitted an official investigative report filled with witness testimonies. More people learned the truth. The so-called civilizing mission of colonial rule concealed unspeakable brutality. Writer Mark Twain joined the critics, publishing satirical works exposing Leopold's hypocrisy. The world began to question, could one king own an entire territory? Could he destroy millions of lives for the sake of wealth? In 1908, the Belgian government took control of the Congo Free State. This private colony ended Leopold I's 24 years of direct rule. Yet before handing over power, Leopold ordered masses of official documents burned. He left these words, "They have no right to know what I did there." Leopold II died in 1909. He left behind wealth, magnificent architecture, and the image of a modernized Belgium. But in the Congo, he left a different legacy, a shattered population, an altered society, generational trauma that lingers to this day. Today, when you stand in Brussels gazing at those grand buildings, you may marvel at their beauty. But if you look south, you will understand history never offers only one single truth. The same city can symbolize progress and plunder. The same king can be remembered by some as a builder, and by others as an executioner. For history's cruelest truth is this: prosperity and suffering often exist side by side.